I'm going to tell you something that cost me the better part of 10 years to learn, and I'd love to save you the wait. The amount you start with barely matters. $100 a month sounds like nothing, right? A couple of takeaway coffees, a streaming bill, the kind of money that disappears every month without you even clocking where it went. And nearly everyone reckons that's the whole problem. I'll start investing properly when I've got real money. When the pay rise lands, when the kids are off the books, when things settle down, here's the bit nobody tells you, and it is genuinely not your fault you were never told it. The $100 was never the point. What quietly changes your entire financial life isn't the size of that first deposit, it's the day the clock starts ticking. And once you see what starting actually does to the maths, and weirdly, to you can't unsee it, so let's do the real maths on it. Calmly. No hype, no get rich by Friday rubbish. And look, quick honest note before we go a step further, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a bloke who worked this out the slow way by getting it wrong first. This is general information, not advice for your situation. So for that, have a proper yarn with someone licensed who actually knows your numbers, right? Stick around, because by the end, you'll see exactly why the first 100 a month matters about 10 times more than the 100 you'll add 5 years from now. And the one move that flips the whole thing in your favor. G'day, I'm Davo. Let me paint you the picture that finally made it click for me. Two people. We'll call them Dan and Pete. Same age, roughly the same pay, both with about $100 a month they could send somewhere useful if they decided to. Same money, same starting line. Dan decides this month to just start. $100 into a plain, boring, broad investment, automated the day his pay lands so he never sees it. Pete agrees it's a great idea. Genuinely means it. But Pete's gonna wait just till things are a bit less tight, till the car's paid off, till he's earning a bit more, so the 100 feels less pointless. Pete waits 5 years. Now here's the thing, for those 5 years, you would look at the two of them and see no difference at all. Same flat, same kind of car, same Friday night, nothing visible happened. But something invisible did, and that invisible thing is the entire video. So let me show you what actually happened in Dan's account, because the first part is going to sound like an argument for Pete. After a full year of tipping in 100 a month, Dan's put in $1,200 of his own money, and the growth on top, the magic compounding everyone bangs on about, earned him about $40. Forte. A year of being the responsible one, and the market handed him roughly the price of a pizza. If you've ever started doing the right thing with money and felt like an idiot for how little happened, that's why. That's not you failing. That's just the flat part of the curve, and absolutely nobody warns you about it. Because here's what those beautiful graphs never show you. The ones where the line bends up toward the sky like a wave about to break. They never show you that you have to live inside the flat bit first. And in that flat bit, almost all of your growth is just your own money. Moving from a pocket you can spend out of into a pocket that's a bit harder to reach. You're not building wealth yet. You're building the habit. And your brain, like every human brain, looks at $40 of growth and goes, mate, this is a waste of time. Because we think in straight lines. We see a tiny gain in year one, and we assume year 20 looks like year 1 times 20. It does not. Not even close. Which is exactly why so many good, sensible people quit about 3 years before the whole thing finally wakes up. So what's the difference between Dan and Pete, really, after Pete finally starts 5 years late with the exact same 100 a month? You'd think fairly that Pete just ends up 5 years behind. A bit less at the end. No drama, he'll catch up. But that's not how this maths works, and this is the part that genuinely shocked me when I first ran it. Pete doesn't end up a little behind. He ends up a lot behind, and the gap keeps growing for the rest of his life. Even though from that point on, the two of them are doing the identical thing, same $100, same fund, side by side, because the years Dan started early aren't just 5 extra years of deposits. They're the 5 years that get the longest possible time to compound on top of themselves. The earliest dollars are the most powerful dollars you will ever invest because they're the ones with the most road in front of them. Pete didn't lose 5 years of contributions. He lost the 5 years that would have done the heaviest lifting. Now, there's a reason one of the sharpest money minds who ever lived gave the advice he gave about exactly this. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's late business partner, possibly the most quotable grumpy old fella in the history of money, got asked how an ordinary person actually builds wealth. And he said, and I'm cleaning it up a touch for YouTube, that the first chunk is a real swine, but you got to grind it out because once it's there, the math starts carrying you. He wasn't being dramatic and he wasn't talking about being clever. He was describing a real mathematical line, and the on-ramp to that line is just starting and not stopping. He never bothered explaining the engine underneath it. So that's what we're doing right now, because once you see the engine, the whole thing stops feeling like a scam. Here's the engine room, and I really want you to get this one. At any moment, your money is growing from two engines. Engine one is you, your 100 a month, your discipline, the bit you physically put in. Engine two is the return what your existing pile earns on its own while you're asleep, while you're at work, while you've completely forgotten the account exists. In the beginning, engine one does basically everything and engine two is a joke. But engine two has a sneaky property. It gets stronger every single year all by itself without you adding a thing, because it's a percentage of a pile that keeps growing. And there is a specific calculable moment where engine two overtakes engine one, where the market is adding more to your wealth each year than you are. The earlier you start, the sooner you reach that crossover, and everything past it is basically money you didn't have to earn. Dan's quietly walking toward that line. Pete restarted the walk 5 years later. Same speed, but Dan's already further down the road, and the road only gets steeper in your favor the further along you are. Let me make that less abstract, because here's where the math stops being interesting and starts being genuinely unfair in your favor for once. There's a little rule of thumb called the rule of 72. You take 72, divide it by your yearly return, and that's roughly how many years it takes your money to double. I'm going to use 7% for this purely as an illustration. That's roughly the long-run cruise speed of broad share markets over decades. It is not a promise, and any single year can be wildly up or down. At 7%, money doubles about every 10 years. So a dollar you invest at 25 has time to double, then double again, and maybe again before you retire. The same dollar invested at 40 might only get 1 or 2 doublings. Same dollar, wildly different destiny. The only difference is how many times it got a double, and doublings are bought with one currency only time, which is the one ingredient in this whole recipe you cannot buy more of, borrow, or fake. Let me put a real number on the 100 a month, because it compounds. It's easy to say and easy to ignore. $100 a month left to grow at that illustrative 7% over 30 years. Over those 30 years, you personally put in $36,000 of your own money, 100 a month. That's it, the price of a couple of coffees a week. And at the end, illustratively, that account is sitting somewhere around 120,000. Read that back. You put in 36 grand in dribs and drabs you'd never have missed, and the maths handed you the other 80-odd thousand for free while you slept. Now stretch the exact same 100 a month out to 40 years instead of 30, and it doesn't grow by a third more. It more than doubles up past $250,000. Same $100. The only thing you changed was starting 10 years sooner. That gap, that enormous gap between the 30-year number and the 40-year number, that is the entire price tag of waiting, and it's the bill Pete's quietly going to receive in his 60s without ever realizing he signed up for it. Now, if you're sitting there going, Davo, this is making me feel sick because I didn't start at 25, stop. Genuinely stop. Because the same math that punishes waiting is the math that rewards starting today instead of next year. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is this afternoon. The worst time is once I've read a few more articles. Pete's mistake was never that he started late. It was that every year he kept finding a perfectly reasonable excuse to start later still. The 100 a month was always doable. He just kept telling himself it was too small to matter, and too small to matter is the single most expensive sentence in personal finance. And this is the bit that surprised me most, because it's not really about the money at all. When Dan started that 100 a month, something changed in his head within about 3 months. He stopped being someone who spends whatever's left and started being someone who pays himself first. He started noticing the difference between buying stuff and owning things. Not in a tight, miserable, cling to every coin way. He still went out, still had a life. But there was a quiet new question running in the background. Is this the version of me I'm building toward? The $100 didn't make him rich, it made him an investor. And an investor 5 years in, with the habit baked in and the account finally showing real numbers, almost always finds a way to make it 150. Then 200, not because he got a windfall, because starting changed who he was, and who you are with money matters 100 times more than what you earn. If you want the whole thing laid out, the maths, the order I do it in, the milestones to actually watch, I put it all in a little plain English guide, and it's linked down below. No pressure, no hard sell. It'll be there whenever you want it, right? Now, before you sprint off and set up a transfer feeling like a genius, we need an honest yarn, because there are a few things the finance crowd conveniently leave out, and I refuse to be one of them. First, honest bit that 7% is a long-run average, and it's also a bit of a fib about any single year. Markets do not politely hand you the same return every 12 months. Some years, they jump 20-odd%. Some years they fall a third, and the average is just what's left standing after the good years and the ugly years have had a fight. You will absolutely live through stretches where you've been tipping in your 100 for 2 years and your account is worth less than you put in. That is not the maths breaking. That's the toll you pay for the long run number, and the people who win aren't the clever ones. They're just the ones who don't bail out at the bottom. Second honest bit, and I had this one completely backwards for years, so let me save you the trouble. I used to obsess over picking the perfect investment before I'd start. Spent hours, genuinely, comparing options, terrified of getting it slightly wrong, while putting in exactly $0 the whole time. Here's the truth that would have saved me those years. Early on, when your pile is small, the thing you put your money in barely moves the needle compared to whether you're putting money in at all. If you've got $1,000 invested and you spend 40 hours hunting for an extra 1%, congratulations, you made yourself $10. If you'd spent that same energy finding a way to add another $50 a month, that's $600 a year, 60 times the impact. Below the early line, your saving habit is the whole game. The clever stuff is a rounding error. I had that the wrong way round, and it cost me real time, and here's the slogan I'll leave you with, because honestly, it's the whole channel in one line. If the maths feels impossible, it's probably not you. Sometimes money's tight in a way no spreadsheet fixes, and 100 a month genuinely isn't there to spare. If that's you right now, you are not failing, you're playing on hard mode, and the math still works the same, it just asks more of you up front. So the move isn't to feel behind. The move is to start with whatever's real, even if it's $10, just to get the clock running and become the kind of person who pays themselves first. You can always turn the tap up. You cannot get back the years you waited. So what actually flips this in your favor? Here's the one move, and it's almost insultingly simple. Automate it. Set up the transfer to happen the day your pay lands, before your brain gets a vote, before the money even feels like yours. Make it boring, make it invisible, and then leave it alone. Don't check it every morning. Don't fiddle with it when the news is scary. The whole trick is to make starting a decision you only have to make once. Instead of a battle of willpower, you have to win every single month. Willpower loses. Automation doesn't get tired. Let me land this with the bit I actually want you to remember. Dan and Pete had the same money, the same fund, the same plan. The only difference between them was a single, unglamorous decision Dan made 5 years earlier to start before it felt worth it. Not more income, not more brains, just an earlier start, and the patience to let the boring years be boring. 10 years from now, that 100 a month is either quietly working away in the background building you a future, or it's still sitting in the I'll start when things settle down pile where it's been the whole time. And things never quite settle down, do they? There's always a reason to wait, which is exactly why the people who win are the ones who start in the middle of the mess. One boring sentence, and it's the only one in here. I'm not a financial advisor, and this is general information, not financial advice. Those numbers are illustrations using a stated rate, not predictions or guarantees, so take what's useful and leave the rest. Now, do me a favor and drop a comment telling me the honest truth. Have you started? Or are you still in the when things settle down camp? No judgment. I was in that camp for years. I read them all. And next time, I'll show you the smartest order I'd actually do things in if I were starting from scratch. Until then, look after your money, and it'll look after you. I'm Davo. Catch you next one.